So, I've been rather upset. I've been rather upset about a lot of things, but there's nothing that makes me feel as lousy as the state of the Dellasaurus project. And let's see, Silverstone, low profile, CSATA, cable. It's in here. I know it's in their catalog. There it is. Few things of what's going on right now bum me out quite as much as the Dellasaurus project, because Dellasaurus Rex was supposed to be my answer to some feedback that I've been getting from people that I was holding back the Sandy Bridge Dellasaurus and Dell Optiplex 990 with a Sandy Bridge i7 processor that I'm trying to see how long it stays relevant as a gaming PC, because these are retired off-lease corporate machines. I'm buying the tower version of computers that I'm already familiar with over at the 9to5. The last generation anyways. This year, finally, these 2012, 2013 Sandy Bridge computers are finally getting swapped out for net tops. Intel Core i5 8000 series, I believe, and they're net tops. So they're the super low power version, and it's all solid state, and it barely even looks like a computer. But it is just as functional as a computer, and it probably barely guzzles any watts, like maybe a handful of watts for i5, and being able to run Excel and do all the stuff that an office computer would want to do. Really awesome stuff. I'm sure it's an appliance, just like net tops are, and that the secondhand tinkering computer world is losing something because these systems are just getting more and more proprietary and non-upgradable, except for a bigger SSD or something. There might even be soldered on components for all I know. But the big thing here is the Sandy Bridges went so long, the better part of a decade. Oftentimes, I've seen companies have 5-year life cycles for computers to try and swap them out before they start getting too expensive. One of the key differences between consumer IT and corporate IT is the way the approach to things, the collective approach to IT. Once you start learning about it, it makes sense. But when you first learn about it, you're like, what? Why would a company do something like that? Like, for example, why would a company buy all new computers instead of upgrading a bunch of computers with mechanical drives to solid state drives? And there's a whole bunch of mathematics about cost management and the labor you will spend getting a technician to upgrade those computers. It's a totally different animal when you go from consumer IT to corporate IT. So, in the case of the Dellasaurus, they're off-lease Dell Optiplexes. I have a Sandy Bridge one and an Ivy Bridge one. I bought the Sandy Bridge one a couple of years ago refurbished, and it's worked great. And I have a no extra power graphics card, and I'm running the bone stock components, including the power supply, 80 plus gold, by the way, into the ground. I'm seeing how long that computer with its specific hardware configuration and 16 gigs of RAM can keep running games, and at what settings before it finally bites the dust. Then I might think of upgrading it to something else. But when I built the Dellasaurus, people were very upset with me, or should I say converted the Dellasaurus with the Sandy Bridge. People were very upset with me because they were like, don't hold back that Sandy Bridge with a 1050 Ti. And what they wanted me to do was upgrade the power supply. But here's the thing. The Dellasaurus gets its name from the video I have, Windows 8 versus the Dellasaurus, where I took my dad's old Dell Dimension from when I went off to college, and he was the last person in the family who didn't have email. So he went out, he buys a computer so he can get online, finally, like the rest of the family already was. So he bought a Dell Dimension. It was Celeron, ran Windows Millennium Edition. It's just, oh yeah, it's old. And when he finally got rid of it, many years later, I was the idiot that was trying to install newer operating systems on the old Celeron that couldn't even do 64-bit, 32-bit processor only. And so there's a couple of videos on YouTube of Windows 8 versus the Dellasaurus, Windows 10 versus the Dellasaurus, with the original Dell Dimension. Eventually, I was like, you know what? This is stupid. There's nothing this thing's going to run anymore, not even lightweight Linux distros. And so I retired it. And I decommissioned it. And it's been a footrest / doorstop ever since. So the Sandy Bridge Dellasaurus picks up where the original Dellasaurus left off. It is the oldest processor in terms of Sandy Bridge second generation that I would want to do anything with, because the first generation Core I's were not as power efficient. A lot of what made Intel a more well-rounded processor and a more refined processor than most of the AMD stuff for years was actually standardized with Sandy Bridge. Sandy Bridge was the infamous generation of computers where Sandy Bridges were still being used for games for years after that when they first came out. Matter of fact, I remember Skylake and Kaby Lake advertisements from Intel that were saying, upgrade your CPU, let's compare it to the old stuff. Here's a comparison to Sandy Bridge. And so Sandy Bridge was the comparison chip. So the longevity of Sandy Bridge, really, was it's the stuff of legends. Of course, AMD was messing around with construction equipment chips at the time, so I actually feel like I wasted my money on my 1090T system that lasted several years because I built it about 6 months before Sandy Bridge came out. Gotta be more careful with this. No lid. This tea over here. So yeah, before Sandy Bridge came out, I really feel ripped off. Once I found out how much more power efficient and more powerful in general the Sandy Bridge i7 was versus what I was using at the time, it's, yeah. So when I decided to pass the torch on of the Dellasaurus to a computer that I would run into the ground with really old stuff, I went with Sandy Bridge. I'm like, let's get an i7 because the AMD Ryzen is coming out. And at the time, the contemporary wisdom was, hey, you don't need more than 4 cores to game. Just get a Core i5. You only need a Core i7 if you're doing really intense 3D modeling and stuff. You don't need a Core i7 to game. And then, of course, we have the AMD Ryzen that comes out. The AMD Ryzen starts taking processors in the direction of multi-core more than ever before. So Intel not being able to count to 4 is finally a thing of the past. The tail wags the dog. Intel finally caves, and we finally move beyond quad cores all over the place. So, yeah, 4-core, 8-thread, definitely a smart choice when we look back on everything that happened. So, I have 2 computers. They're featured in the videos that I have on YouTube. So, at least you said if socials does not exist. Okay, whatever, Nightbot. Still got to finish programming that thing. It doesn't work right, to say the least. So, anyway, I'm fooling around with all the robots available for Twitch chats, just to see what they all do. So, something else that goes on here when it comes to the Dellasaurus thing. I started with a Sandy Bridge. And then people complained, and I was like, you know what? Ivy Bridge is pretty cool, too. It wasn't until Haswell that there were issues with power and heat. So, it wasn't until Ivy Bridge, or it wasn't until Haswell that things started getting hotter. You had problems with the thermal material, that sort of thing. So I decided, let's grab an Ivy Bridge and have that be the i7 system that I upgrade. And so what happened was, I picked that up, went to put my old 1060 graphics card in there, and the graphics card will fit inside that little Optiplex case, but it covers up the serial ATA ports. So I lose all of the ports that go out to all the drives. Unless I get special cables, and hopefully they fit. However, I have them on my screen for Newegg right now. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. They are $14 a cable. Now, it has to be this shape because the 4 ports are vertical right next to each other. So you can't have the 90-degree cables that go the other way. It has to be this. So, $14 a cable to have a chance. $14 a cable to have a chance at continuing the Dellasaurus Rex project. Now, I just got done talking about how Dellasaurus Rex was a failure, and it is. Dellasaurus Rex is a complete failure of a project. And it's in my latest YouTube video. The Dellasaurus era is over. Even the search engines are ganging up against the Dellasaurus. So, Dellasaurus Rex is a failed project, and the only way to salvage it is if these cables will actually fit. Otherwise, we have to take the motherboard out, which I think might be micro ATX. And I was looking for one of those cases where I could use a graphics card extension cable for the PCI Express to mount the graphics card. If you have little like HTPC cases that have compartments for everything, I could use one of those. And I was thinking it wouldn't be a Dellasaurus at that point, but it would be a console killer. And I would call it like the J-Box Series L, a parody of the Xbox Series X. So, and L rhymes with Dell, so the J-Box Series L. Interesting name for a console killer PC running off of an Ivy Bridge. So, here's the thing. I went looking at the cost of those cases. A lot of them are no longer being sold firsthand. They've all gone to resellers that are marking them up to $200 and $300 a case. You'll find them on the dark corners of Newegg somewhere. The ones still being sold firsthand are like 80-something. So I feel so like I'm getting ripped off. However, the rip-off cables are the least expensive, most cost-effective way for this project to move forward. If I want to give it one more shot, I'd buy 3 of these. Optical drive, games drive for hard drive for games, SSD for the OS. So, about $14 or so. What does that come out to? 14 times 3, something 2, I know. $42 in cables is less than an $80+ case that I could use. And it might not even be the right case. It has to support micro ATX and basically let you put the graphics card in a separate compartment from the motherboard. So it has to be one of those cases where the graphics card can be flat along with the motherboard and use a cable to hook it all up. That's the only chance we have with a special case. That will probably cost more than getting ripped off with $42 in cables just to get a computer running. Oh, man, what have I gotten myself into with this crap? So yes, the Dellasaurus project, as much as I really need to get past all this Dellasaurus stuff, as much as I need to get past all of this Dellasaurus stuff, I think there is one more chance for Dellasaurus Rex to do its job, and it involves getting ripped off to the tune of $40-something in cables. Oh man, oh man, oh man.